Hey folks, Andy here, thanks for joining me. Right, this is a video of a type which I never really thought I would be making. It's a reaction sort of video to the death of Jeff Beck, which occurred just over a week ago. And I've been surprised by how much I feel it has impacted me, even more so than when Eddie Van Halen died a couple of years ago. And I think the reason is that I've always had this sort of strange relationship with Jeff Beck's music. Now, I probably first heard Beck back in the day when I bought a cassette, and I'm pretty sure it was called something mildly offensive like White Boy Blues. And I think it featured the guys who eventually were the Yardbirds guitarists, so Clapton, Beck and Page, you know, the holy triumvirate of English guitar players. And I kind of went on and I was listening to Page and Led Zeppelin, whom I absolutely love and adore. Clapton, I've liked on and off through his career. I probably first really started listening to Eric Clapton back when he was doing those kind of soft rock albums, you know, when he was going through his J.J. Cale phase. But then I went back and I found Cream, and then a bunch of later albums came on, with I think starting with August and Journeyman and what have you, when he really seemed to rediscover his identity and his fire. And I saw him at the Albert Hall and thought he was absolutely astonishing. But Jeff Beck, I've appreciated for a great many years, but I really don't listen to all that much. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, I sort of done the Beck thing. I went out and I bought these back in the days when you got these wonderful double packages of CDs, and some great music on these. But in fairness, for most of the time that I've had those, I listened to them once or twice, and then they've sort of sat on a shelf and other things get listened to before that. I remember when Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop came out in, the very end of the 80s, 89 I'm going to say. Hang on, I've got some dates written down here. Let me just have a quick look. Jeff Beck's Guitar Shop. I wrote it down, I really did. Yeah, 1989 Guitar Shop came out, and I bought it from HMV, listened to it, and I took it back. I just couldn't listen to it. And I find this with a lot of very clever, very sort of technical guitar players, that they become so good at what they're doing that they sort of stretch themselves out and they start dipping into sort of types of music that are just too clever for me, that I just cannot get my poor primitive musical brain around. Then Jeff Beck came along on tour at the very end of the 90s, sort of 99, 2000, when he went out with Jennifer Batten. And I went to see him with my mate Dave Sam. And he played at Hammersmith Odeon in West London. And we went along, turned up, and there were notices stuck up outside saying that the gig had been cancelled. Jeff had apparently thrown his back out or something. And a slightly strange thing happened, that we were standing outside the Odeon doing well, what should we do now? I know, let's go to the Blue Anchor and have a few beers. And a guy, didn't know him, never seen him before, came up and he said, "Have you seen Beck before?" And we said, "No." And he just said, "Keep your tickets." And we sort of walked away saying, yeah, that's a bit odd, wasn't it? Anyway, we kept the tickets. And a while later, Jeff Beck came and played Hammersmith Odeon. And it was one of the most transcendental evenings of my life. He was astonishing. Now, bearing in mind that this is a guitar player playing some very technical music, instrumental stuff. I think he probably said about 3 or 4 words in the whole of the gig. And it was music that, even though I'd heard some of it before because I'd had these albums, I hadn't really listened to, so I was kind of getting this stuff pretty fresh. And he absolutely blew my mind. So I went back and I picked up a couple of those albums again, including Guitar Shop, and listened to them and never listened to them again. I just couldn't get on with it. Similar thing happened much more recently with J.D. Simo. Went to see him, really cheap ticket, small club, I think paid £17 for a ticket to go and see him, again with the same Dave Samuel. And what a band that guy had. And he played a solo, and I couldn't tell you if it was 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour long, but however long it was not long enough. I just wanted it to go on and on. Now, I'm a guitar player, I'm a sort of slash and burn guitar player, and I don't have a lot of patience for long solos. I like players who get in, say something, and then get out. And this thing went on and on and on. And again, it was just like waves of pleasure washing over. So that's kind of twice in my life that I've had that done in the context where I'm listening to music, but not really understanding the songs that I'm hearing, just bathing in the pleasure of it all. So Beck, where did he come from? It's one of those sort of slightly odd little eras of time that there's a bunch of English guys who appeared, who were all born in the sort of stretch through from Keith Richards was the end, I think, of 1943, and then through 44 we got Jimmy Page, 45 we got Clapton, 46 we got Peter Green, we got Dave Gilmour, and Jeff Beck appeared in 1944. So he was just sort of at the beginning, more or less, of that little run where there must have been something in the water or the air.
Hey, don't forget Richard Blackmore, born in 1945.
Now, these guys' careers started off at the time when rock music really did not exist. And that kind of era changed around what these guys were doing. So the Yardbirds kind of appeared as the band that, in my mind and a lot of other people, transcended the pop to rock era. And they went through this amazing period where Clapton played with them between 63 and 65. Beck was 65, 66, and then played for a year with Jimmy Page and Beck. Beck left and Page went on for another couple of years. And, that was sort of the end of the era of the Yardbirds before it became the new Yardbirds and then Led Zeppelin. Now, the famous John Mayall's Blues Breakers album featuring Eric Clapton, the Beano album, came out in 66. And it became enormous. Eric became the thing of the day. Clapton is God started appearing all over the place. And Eric Clapton's reaction to this was to pack up and head out to, I think he went to one of the Greek islands, playing some band that nobody's ever heard of to people who probably didn't know what they were listening to, and came back pretty much destitute. Jeff Beck's reaction to having a hit record with the Yardbirds was pretty much to quit the Yardbirds and go off on his own route. So these guys, they had no inkling of worrying about commercial success. They just wanted to make the music that they were hearing in their heads. Now, Clapton went through his soft rock period. Beck kind of evolved himself out. He did various incarnations of the Jeff Beck group, and he sort of evolved his playing from this pop thing through some rocky stuff, through some bluesy stuff, and then he started going instrumental, and I'm going to say probably around about 1975 he started transitioning from the R&B pop world that he'd been living in through into the instrumental type of music that we're known for. In the 80s he ditched his pick and started playing with his fingers, but it was his brain, I think, that really kind of defined what Beck was all about. And here's the interesting thing about Jeff Beck. I can't quite picture Jeff Beck ever sitting down and practicing. I can picture him playing, but I can't picture him sitting down and practicing scales, practicing chords. It was almost like he had a vision of what music was going to be to him, and he played into that music rather than practicing what was already about. That's my vision. Could be completely untrue, but that's sort of how it seems. Now, he was also a guy who had other passions, and the one that most of us know about is his cars. But he, unlike some people, a lot of rock stars like their cars, and there seems to be a real correlation between play guitar, be a petrol head. But Beck actually did work on his own cars a lot. Grease under the fingernail stuff. He would spanner engines, he'd work bodywork, stuff like this. He was really into that stuff. He was a genuine article. He's always been a bit of a cipher as far as I could make out, and it's only fairly recently that I caught an interview with him with Maguire's Car Wax, and I was amazed by how relaxed and warm and chatty he was. It's like this vision I have of Beck is this guy on a sort of pedestal over there. It's like, oh my God, he was actually a human being. He was a bloke as well. So, all good stuff. The story gets better and better as you get into it. Now, his music, there is so much in there to learn, but as I said earlier, I get confused by Beck's music. And probably my favourite recording of his, and I know people are going to throw rocks at me for this, but I think my favourite recording by him is the Young Guns soundtrack that he did with John Bon Jovi. It sounded great. It had the hallmarks of what he did. It was clever. It was intriguing. but it kind of pulled it back to a format that I could get my poor dim little mind around. Now, take Page, take Clapton, stick a track on, give me a guitar, and like most of us, I can probably jam along with some degree of success with what's going on, improvise solos over stuff. It works fine. Give me a Jeff Beck track, I can't do that. I can't find my centre in that sort of music. Now, here's the really funny thing. The thing that prompted me to make this video is I have a set of 4 videos on my YouTube channel, and they were videos that I took when I went to see ZZ Top in 2015, and it was Jeff's, I think, 71st birthday. He came out on stage. Now, he'd recently done a Guitar World cover with Billy Gibbons, and I read that, and it was great. Great article. The two guys talked about guitars, music, and all this stuff. And of course, their history goes back a long, long way. Billy's always told the story about how he got his first Marshall through Jeff Beck, who was, a big name back when Billy was, who is this guy who Jimi Hendrix says is the best unknown guitar player in the world. So they've known each other a long time. But when Jeff actually came out on his birthday to play, it was like, wow, that's absolutely astonishing. The videos have been sitting there and they've got a few views, and obviously there's been a massive upsurge of interest since Jeff died. And here's the funny thing. There are 4 songs. There's Lagrange, Tush, 16 Tons and Rough Boy. The viewing figures as of this morning for the past 28 days on those videos are Rough Boy, 131. 16 Tons, 325. Tush, 1,197. Lagrange, 296,000 views. Now, I find this quite interesting. The 4 videos that are sitting next to each other on the same YouTube channel, they've got similar titling sequences and they've got similar thumbnails on them. I've got comments, certainly on the Lagrange one, saying, my God, Jeff Beck just blows Billy Gibbons into the weeds. What's all this about? Jeff is the best, and so on and so forth. And yet, looking at those views, they're not about Jeff Beck. They are about the songs that are ZZ Top songs. Lagrange, 296,000. Down to Rough Boy, another ZZ Top song, but, much less known and loved. 131. That's not 131,000, that's 131 views. So I think maybe a lot of people who love Jeff Beck felt the same sort of frustration that I do, where I love the man's playing, I don't so much love his music. Now, I know a lot of people disagree with this, but interesting viewing. Lagrange, 296,000 views in the last 28 days. Rough Boy, 131. And Jeff Beck is there on both of those. Anyway, I've listened to more Beck myself in the last 7 days than I have in the last 20, 25 years. And I think he was one of the very few musicians out there who never sold himself out. He went with the vision of what he was about. He played the music that was in his head to a degree that most of us could never even dream of doing. I think he will be forever considered to be one of the greats. He was there at the beginning and he helped create this thing that we call rock music and rock guitar.